Okay. All right, let me see. I need to unmute. Oh, I am unmuted. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for participating. We are the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council. And as more and more people come in, we can get to our official business. But at this point, I would like to just hand the gavel over to Nick, who can talk to you about the what you need to do in terms of using this Zoom platform. Nick?
Good evening. Standard stuff applies. Forgive the screaming children in the background. Please join with one device from a location. Keep yourself muted unless you're going to speak. I can't unmute you. Only you can unmute yourself. If you're calling in on a phone, which it looks like no one is tonight, you have to press *6 to unmute yourself from a phone call. And there is a button in the Reactions tab on most devices. Sometimes it'll just say raise hand along the bottom of your screen, but if you go to Reactions and click raise hand, then the chair will recognize you if you would like to speak or you have a comment. I think that is it. Oh, Diane, would you mind posting the democratic rules in the chat for everybody? And if you push, oftentimes on a desktop client, there's a little button down below that has a little speech bubble and it says chat. Sometimes it's worth bringing that up. You can see links that people post and all that good kind of stuff. That's it. Thanks for coming.
Okay. Well, nice to see you all. We're almost getting to a quorum, but we don't have anything that's really going to require a quorum today. So we can proceed before we get there. And let's see. The first thing that we would like to do is review and approve the agenda. Now, the agenda has been sent out to everyone. And let's see, I see in the chat, the democratic rules of order are there now. So if anyone has any questions about the rules that we were following, they are the democratic rules of order. They've been posted in the chat. Is there anyone who has any changes or corrections that you would like to make to the agenda, the proposed agenda? It should be a relatively short meeting, hopefully, but we've got some interesting things to cover. And if you, as Nick says, if you want to call someone's attention to something, you can raise your hand in the reactions, okay? I don't see anyone who has any changes or corrections, so I will adapt the agenda for this meeting.
David, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just, since we have some folks here who aren't very familiar with Zoom, they might not be familiar or be able to find the reactions button on the bottom. If you can't, just, do this. We eventually will see you and we'll call on you if you can't find the reactions button on the bottom, okay? We sure don't want to miss you if you want to speak.
All right. And the other thing is, after you put your hands up, if you look at my box over there, I'm raising my hand. But then after you raise your hand and you're finished talking, please lower your hand or else we'll think you still have something to say. And so when you put up raise hand, the flag for lower hand will also go up. We now have a quorum. So let's see, let's move on to approve the minutes of the last meeting, which might even require a quorum. So has everyone had an opportunity to see the minutes from last month's meeting that have been put out? And thank you. Was it Gavin who did this? Thank you for putting together the minutes for the meeting. Okay, does anyone wish to make any changes to the minutes? Seeing no hands raised, either digitally or personally, I will approve the minutes for last month's meeting. And the next item on the agenda is the introduction of guests. Now, looking through our list, we have some distinguished Islanders that I see. And there's Heather Volpe, who's captain of Precinct 4. Thank you very much for joining us, Heather. And we really appreciate the attention that you are giving to Vashon Island. It's a very special place. We've had a long history of good cooperation with the King County Sheriffs. Even when I was a prosecutor on Vashon way back when we had jury trials here. So, and the courthouse is now a marijuana dispensary. So, you know, times change. Right. Anyway, let's see, do we have any other guests from King County? Yeah, I don't see any. Well, we do have Kate Riley. She's an Islander, but she's going to be speaking on behalf of the Vashon Land Trust. And yep, that's about it. So then in terms of having old business that we need to look to, there is none. And committee and board updates. Is Morgan Brown here to give us an update with regard to the Affordable Housing Committee? Well, not yet. And then Rachel Rome on the Equity, Social Justice and Inclusion Committee. Rachel, are you here? Well, not yet. And so how about the Strawberry Festival Committee? I think we have a glowing report from that occasion. So Mika, would you like to give the report, or Diane, would you like to give the report? It looks like Mika's deferring to Diane.
Looks like she is. So I will. It was really so good. It worked out so well as a fundraiser. And it was because of Mika that we did this at all. She suggested it. And I said, yes, let's do it. And so she and I were the co-chairs of the committee, and we pulled it off in a relatively short time. And I'll just give you the numbers. On Friday, we did it all 3 days, of course. And what we were doing, our fundraiser was selling the most amazing, delicious strawberry shortcakes that Mika made. And they had real whipped cream, fresh strawberries, and biscuits that she made. And oftentimes they were still warm from the oven when we were putting on the strawberries and the whipped cream and giving them to people. And we were selling them for $9 for a strawberry shortcake, and we sold out. On Friday, we took in little over $500. On Saturday, we took in almost $2,000. And on Sunday, we took in over $700. So gross sales were over $3,000 for this fundraiser. And we will be subtracting out of that the costs of the raw materials to make the strawberry shortcakes. And so it's going to be a very nice fundraiser, our very first for this organization. And we actually have a bank account to put it in. So we're really moving along. And this amount of money will go a long way to cover the basic costs of running this organization: insurance for board members, websites, printing costs, filing fees for all the different forms we have to file with the IRS and the state, et cetera. So that's my side of it. Mika, I would love for you to talk about the really fun stuff that you pulled off for this Strawberry Festival.
All right, so very rarely does an event come out just as you envisioned it. but this event came out just as I had envisioned it. It was so much fun. We had people, board members interacting with the public, Hunter following people to the strawberry shortcake stand and getting them to sign up, little tiny steps. And when they turned around, there she was with her clipboard, getting getting new members. Diane was on board, making sure there was no gaps in the thing. We had Happy the Clown, who is a very successful retired business person and does this just for fun, usually for Shriners Hospital. And so he was making balloons, and Hunter had a bubble station, and that got families involved blowing bubbles. Parents along with the kids were blowing bubbles. It was so fun to see that. I mean, people in general are having fun, and I haven't seen that in a long time since COVID. Then we had, what else? We had the pie eating contest. So we had 4 participants where they couldn't use their hands. We made an exception for the 5-year-old. Maybe he was 4. And so he was allowed to maybe use his hands a little bit. So pie eating contest. It was just absolutely a phenomenal event. Just families were in the parking lot. The clown was also making balloons, like animal balloons and things like that. So it was everything I would have loved to have seen. And I know some people couldn't make it, but I know everyone's hearts were there, and those that did make it, I know we had a lot of fun.
And if I could add something, I think it was a great opportunity to introduce some people who weren't aware of the community council to the community council. We handed out flyers and talked to them about it, and it was great for some public education. So
yes,
and not to mention the strawberry shortcake itself, which was exceptional.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, that's the place to go for strawberry shortcake or other food, especially the ribs. I'll tell you, I'm partial to those ribs over at Mika's Kitchen. So thank you very much, Mika. You did a great job. Oh, could you tell me one thing? Does the computer work? Can't see you now. Let's see.
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So I got the mouse working, and the computer also worked. But the mouse is working on my laptop as well.
Oh, so that's all you needed was the mouse for your laptop?
Yeah.
Okay, well, good enough. Yes, Hunter.
Yeah.
I see Hunter's hand is
I
raised.
just wanted to thank Mika and Diane, who did a colossal job. We owe them a lot. Thank you very much.
Yep, I have to thank Diane too, because you did a great job organizing with Mika.
Yeah.
So,
but the
I see-
teamwork, the teamwork between everybody was amazing. Yeah.
now Diane's hand is raised. Yes, Diane.
Yes, I just wanted to let everybody know I am attaching to the chat. It's loading right now, the brochure that we all worked on and put together and had printed. And it's a lovely brochure, and it's going to be very useful for us to get the word out and explain things to people about what we're all about. And that was very helpful to have this brochure, and it came in right in time. And Rachel Rome designed it beautifully, and a team of us put the words together, and it all came out very, very well. So that brochure, we have quite a few of them now, and we'll be able to use them for other events and to share whenever we're around people and they'd like to know more about the organization.
Okay, well, great. Good job to everyone involved, and there were a lot of participants. So it was just a great, a great fundraiser. We made a ton of money, which is excellent. And thank you again, Mika, for your efforts, for your, the time, all the ingredients you put into that. It was great. So next on the agenda will be the King County Sheriff's Office update. Captain Heather Volpe, who's here.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, great.
Good. I'm going to talk slower this time too. So if you guys remember me a few months ago, I talk fast. I'm going to try and do better.
It's all right.
So since I was last here in, gosh, it's been already 4 months, I think. I have been out to the island a handful of times, and most recently I was out meeting with the great people at the Dove Project. I think everyone on the island is aware that the deputies can rotate through. You can have some similar faces for a while, and then there's some brand new young faces that you don't quite know. And what I learned is that some of my new deputies wasn't as familiar with the Dove Project. So we've been doing some roll call training with all deputies that work on the island to make sure we're connected with that great resource that's on the island, specific for the island. So it's one of the updates I wanted to share. The other part was to get an update of crime trends. What I have been doing is reviewing our current status of 2022 comparative to 2021. Where were we in the first 6 months of 2021 and where are we today? And it was surprising to see that we are very similar in numbers right now, but we're talking a lot more about things. And I think part of that might be the pandemic and people being a little bit more isolated, but part of it I think is encouraging that people are talking more about it, right? That we're having more conversations of what we're seeing and what we're doing. I'm hoping people are reporting things that they're seeing. In the first half for our burglaries, I was happy to see a number of them were resolved in arrest. So that is a very good thing. And then going through some of the larcenies, the thefts that were going on the island, I noticed a consistency of just potentially the help of just locking cars or making sure things are secured before you go to bed for the night, with the people just trying door handles and going into cars or sheds, and a little unsecure items out in the yard, which it's summertime, we're doing yard work, we're going to leave a couple things out, just to be mindful that let's not leave anything in our car we don't want to have stolen. But it was I think it's good to have a lot of people talking about it and what's going on, but I didn't see too much of a drastic change. It's pretty much right on par where we were in 2021, but we want to be better. We want to be better. And so being mindful of our doors being locked, our cars being secure, and not leaving items in the vehicles would be ideal to maybe help improve even better where we're at from right now. So that's just a really quick summary. Are there any questions people have for me or concerns? Scott, yes.
Yes, Heather. I sent you some emails and left some phone messages about the wrong way drivers going down the Ferry Hill. And I wanted to find out what King County's been doing about it and how many citations or tickets have been issued as a result of that.
I do not have the numbers for the amount of tickets or citations. The one thing I always encourage people, I do get emails, but I always encourage people to report this stuff to report to sheriff.org. And you say, why? I sent you an email. Can't you handle it? Report to sheriff.org connects right to our entire database for the King County Sheriff's Office. So we have the totality of true data, right? If I send an email to a deputy and going, hey, can you go check this out? We're not recording what we're actually doing or where the community is speaking to us. I'm always happy to get emails, but I'll always direct you to report to sheriff.org. And I don't have those numbers in front of me. I will look into our ticket system. I did see an increase in traffic stops on Vashon Island in the last 2 months. I can research that a little bit more to know where those traffic stops are happening, but there is an uptick of traffic stops by the deputies and also contacting businesses. I'm seeing an increase in contacts with businesses. And I think Deputy Caban, who came to us from another precinct, might be one of those people doing it. He's very excited to be on the island and is on the day shift and just loving working out there and being closer to the community. So I will follow up with that, but I do know there's an increase.
But the one thing I wanted to say here is the fact that this wouldn't be your normal traffic stop. In the fact that basically your officer would have to stop and wait and sit there and wait for the vehicles to come down the hill. And the fact it's not a situation where they're speeding or running a stoplight or whatever else. Mm-hmm. This is a situation that you're not going to see unless, and you're going to see more of it during the summer with the cars backed up as far as that's concerned, and with the inexperienced drivers that don't know they can't go down there where it's against the traffic and that kind of stuff. And I've seen a couple of real close calls, and these are much more serious than your average traffic stop situation.
Well, I'm going to be out on the island on Thursday, and I'm going to meet one-on-one with some of my deputies in the afternoon. So I'll make sure we're talking about this face to face and maybe going out there. My deputies that have been out there have been going out there for a couple months, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And people need to know the alternate route to get down to the ferry dock, so it's not quite the line. If you need to drop off a pedestrian, or I understand exactly what you're talking about. So yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, Melvin, your hand was up.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Within the last couple of weeks, I don't remember what date it was, my wife and I were driving south from Vashon town, and about midway between there and Burton somewhere, there were sandwich boards along the west side of Vashon Highway, and a vehicle and the sandwich boards were advertising guns and ammunition. And it appeared to me that somebody was actually selling their guns and ammunition out of the back of their vehicle. And there were people there looking at things that appeared to be quite young, actually. And I'm wondering, I know it's perfectly legal for somebody to be able to sell guns and ammunition, but I just wondered if it's really legal for them to set up a roadside thing with sandwich boards and selling them right out of their car on the shoulder of the highway. Can you answer that?
The gun exchanges usually falls under a lot of federal law with having certain requirements, but I can tell you that side of the road is not a lawful way of selling guns or ammo. Now the ammo, I'm not sure about the ammo, but for the gun specific, now if it's gun parts or some other kind of things, it kind of gets into the weeds. It is something I can look into, but if you see something like that, feel free to call 911. Don't worry about it. Don't go.
My wife did call 911.
Okay. And what day was that? 'Cause I can pull that call up. So I'm very curious of what happened with that.
I don't know the date. It was within the last 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. I can look up the last 2 weeks. That's the other thing I did is I looked up all 911 calls for Vashon since June 1st, just to see what's coming in and what ends up actually being reported. And so it's very interesting information that you can kind of filter through of when someone calls 911 to report something, that 911 operator gets a bit of information from you and does a quick label of it, right? And then it gets sent off to the deputy where it can become something different or labeled something different. So I have access to that database and I can go back 4 to 6 weeks, and then it kind of, there's too much information. So I've been kind of skimming through that to see what type of calls have been coming in as well that don't end up in reports. So I can look into that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mika. And if you could put your hand down. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to first to the thing going down the hill. I would just like to suggest that perhaps more signage, because I go down the hill. I didn't know that was illegal. If I'm not to drop off somebody or pick up somebody, but I just thought that the alternate route was if I was going southward, or to drop off a passenger. I didn't know that I couldn't go down that hill. I had no clue, and I've been here 6 years, so I think better signage on that. Second thing is you mentioned that there have been some arrests for burglaries, and I was just curious if you were familiar with mine, and
I am.
And were any of mine part of those arrests at all?
I'm not.
I saw any of mine, you know. I was the.
You're like, no, I am familiar with yours, and I know the detective. I asked him to follow up a little bit more and get in some videos and some other stuff going on. Yours, I did not see a follow up in that, but I did want to follow up with the detective. I've been out on vacation, so I'm joining up for tonight just to see everybody, and I'll be back in the office in a day or two, and I will follow up with Detective Philbrook and see exactly where that's at. With what I have access to, I didn't see his completed follow-up. I need to read through it a little bit more. So I'm not sure if there is or is not. I need to follow up with him because I've talked to him a couple times about it. With the kind of information he has.
Okay. And would you be interested, because 3 months later, I don't know if you were familiar, but 3 months later, I was burglarized again, but this time nothing was broken, that they just stole money and my medications.
Yeah, I saw that.
I started getting a lot of tips, you know, where a drug house is, the people that little, you know, tips from people. And I didn't know if you guys are already aware of where the drug house is over off of not Maury, but what's the other one? Out towards Maury. Are you guys familiar with that?
I'm
There's
not.
supposed to be like a group of like 6 that live there and are doing a lot of the burglaries from tips that I was getting.
Yeah, and in the burglary numbers, in the last 4 months, we've had 4 reported for burglaries. And I know with one of them, it was called in by somebody else, and the person who was actually the true victim didn't want to follow up with anything. And so, no, there's 5. I apologize. There's 5 in the last 4 months. I also then looked into theft, right? Because I know I can get the technical cop head going, like burglary is this, but sometimes when something's stolen from a shed or something stolen on the property, some people may refer to that as a burglary, and technically that's not. So I was dipping into some of those areas as well. So I think there might be some cross there, right?
Yeah.
I try to remember, Heather, think big picture. Not everyone understands, you know?
Yeah, because
So,
I know there were houses hit before, shortly before maybe I was broken into. So it's a possibility it was the same, but we didn't catch them on camera the second time.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'm going to do is I think I know where you work. So we can probably follow up and make sure, like Deputy Gavin or someone come and talk with you one-on-one. Like I said, he's new to the island. I think he's been working on the island for maybe about 2 months now. So he's still starting to kind of get his knowledge base out there, but he's out there pretty regularly for his shift. So let me get him connected with you so he can come talk with you a little bit more, because I know he's very interested and very invested in the community. So I'm very excited for him to be out there.
Okay, thank you.
I see Scott Harvey has his hand raised, the traditional method.
Yes, actually, to follow up on what Mike had said, I've already contacted King County about signs, and they wrote back to me. They said they put up all the signs that they're going to put up, that's as good as it gets. And so that's just as good as it gets.
Well, you know, sometimes good enough is not good enough, right? But
well, I didn't think so either, but they were saying that it was in compliance or whatever else here. If you could pass it on, Heather, that would be great here. I think more signs would be necessary as well.
Yeah, well, I have the idea of talking with both the state DOT and King County DOT and having a little bit more of a conversation on our end with some concerns. Because we do have an increase in collisions. We do have some increases with pedestrian challenges with cars. And I think we can have a little bit of a safer idea for the island. Signs aren't that expensive. We don't have to do minimum. We can do a little bit more. So
thank you.
That's exactly where I was going, especially after just the last comments. Is this isn't just a sheriff's office? This is going to be a solution by a couple people to make this better. So
great.
Yeah.
They will pay more attention to you.
I'll just be really loud and annoying. That seems to get me some places sometimes.
Okay, squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
Right. Well, great. Are there any questions for Captain Volpe? I don't see anyone raising their hands. So looks like you're done for this month. So we have this as every 2 months you come out and talk with us, and we really appreciate your coming out.
I know. I enjoy this. Thanks for having me. I'll see you guys in September.
Yeah, and the nice thing is you don't have to rush to catch a ferry.
Now, whenever it goes back in person, I'll happily come out there.
Right. Okay, great.
Thank you, everybody.
You're very welcome.
Bye.
Okay. Now, with regard to, let's see, new business. Confirmed changes in the VMICC officers. Gavin Kovite is now going to be taking over as clerk. Diane, I see your hand raised.
Yes, my hand is raised because in the chat, we're backing up a little bit. We do have an update on the Equity, Social Justice and Inclusion Committee. If you'd like to take a look at that.
Sure.
Chat.
Yeah. Okay, so the next committee meeting is Wednesday, August 3rd at 6 p.m. And it's in the chat, the report on the Equity Committee. Thank you, Diane. Next, with regard to...
Excuse me, David, I'm terribly sorry, but we have someone who's calling in and they can't see the chat. Would you mind terribly reading what
no,
Rachel
not a problem.
reported?
Okay, for Rachel Rome, the Equity Committee agreed to change its name to the Equity, Social Justice, and Inclusion Committee. the committee reviewed and modified the charter statement for consideration by the board. See below. The committee will continue to discuss what we do as a committee and how we do it, operating policies, and the next committee meeting is Wednesday, August 3rd at 6 p.m. So that's the latest update.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Oh, just looking at what appears to be a baby raccoon out there. Anyway, okay. The other change is that C. Hunter Davis is going to be the secretary of our organization. So when you have matters that you need to bring to our attention, she is the person who's going to be receiving the letters. Okay. With regard to and handle correspondence and organization records. That's this interesting animal. Doesn't look okay. Anyway, in the next few months, we will start the process of dissolving the VMICC. The board will draft a dissolution resolution and propose it to the community, which will vote on it. You will need to be signed up as a member to vote on this motion. Contact Diane Emerson @yahoo.com to confirm your membership or sign up to be a member. Membership is free. Then we have a community update with regard to the Vashon-Maury Land Trust. Executive Director Kate Riley is here to provide an update on the land trust and answer questions. I saw Kate there. Would you like to take the floor?
Wait, point of order, David. Sorry.
Okay.
It's me again. A lot of people are on our mailing list, but they're not members. And so I think it's for people who'd like to know because they're getting the emails about these meetings, but they're not necessarily our members. And so when it comes to voting, especially on something really important like the dissolution, we will want to be sure people know if they're members or not. So I have a document I'd like to share on the chat, which lists all of the members of both the existing VMICC organization and the newly forming organization. So you can check yourself if you are a member or not. And if you find that you're not a member of either of those organizations, then please get in touch with me and we'll fill out the form so that you can actually become a voting member of the organization. Is that okay, David?
Yeah, that's great. And one of the reasons that's important is under the Washington law now on nonprofit organizations, you cannot say that someone is a member of an organization without their consent. So just saying that all citizens or all residents of Vashon-Maury Island are members of the community council is no longer the rule. We need to get a person's approval for that in order to make them a member. Okay. And now we will proceed to Kate Riley of the Vashon-Maury Land Trust.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And I see some of our founding members that aren't on video, but so I know the Land Trust is near and dear to many of your hearts, as it is to mine. And we're just thrilled to be a part of the community council in any way that we can. So thank you, Diane, for inviting me. So she knows that we've been in just some deep thinking the last year and a half around where we've been, where we're going. I am a new director. I've been here a year. And I come from Snohomish County. I come from conservation districts which have a very similar format to land trust. So I'm really glad to be here. And as our board and our staff have, re-envisioned the future of our organization and what might face Vashon-Maury Island into the future, a couple things have come to the surface that I would love to share. One of them is really that, we as humans are a part of nature. So when we were founded, our first acquisition was Whispering Firs Bog. If any of you have been to that special place, we don't open it up. We only open it up on Mother's Day, actually, or for special tours. But it was really with the idea to protect nature for nature's sake. And, as the years have gone on, we have, been encouraged to have just such an extensive trail system that I hope many of you enjoy. And then, of course, 4 years ago, we acquired the historic Japanese farm Matsuda, right behind K2. And so that has been such an incredible connection to our very diverse community here on Vashon. And that's what we're continuing to amplify in our efforts with education and outreach on that regenerative farm. So we're really thinking differently about, our partnerships, especially with social service organizations. So, instead of just, keeping our, eyes on the road with land conservation, we're really thinking more about education. We're thinking a lot about what our limits are for public lands and how we can really engage private landowners for stewardship. Many of you out there, I know, are incredible stewards on your own property. And so we're thinking about ways that we can do peer-to-peer learning and help us all share the great work and the experiences that we've had over the years, what works and what doesn't work on our forests and our shorelines and all the beautiful ecosystems of Vashon. And so, with kind of this new social impact element, we've really been thinking more strategically how to partner with housing. So with Vashon Household and with the Affordable Housing Committee that Morgan chairs. And something that I've really been inspired by him is just his vision of how Vashon could really be a walkable community. And so that is our next big endeavor that's been on, we've been working on it for many years, but is this vision of a town trail. So that would essentially connect the schools and get the kids off, the highway, but it would connect, the schools, Minglement and Matsuda Farm, which is right there, to Island Center Forest, and then to town. So we would have kind of more of an urban corridor to all of our major employers there, and with our families that are walking into town. And I hope you've heard in the news we've just been very, very fortunate to have some big wins with our King County partners. We supported the acquisition of Morningside Farm. And then also, I think you've probably seen the 100 acres, which is now under protection of Misty Isle, which is just an amazing,
wow.
Yes, just an amazing opportunity for our community to not only preserve open space, but also farmland. And there are trails already there. So more to come on that. We're kind of thinking how to have a grand opening or celebration in the fall, which is connected to another initiative that I wanted to share, which is called the Conservation Futures Tax. And so this, you'll see on your property tax, it's usually about $20 for, normal sized parcels. But this will be on the ballot in November. So this is trying to be restored back to its previous values. And Vashon has been, part of, I think, part of our legacy here on this island is protecting, the incredible nature that we have. not only for ourselves and the creatures that exist here, but for all of Puget Sound. So I think all of you understand the incredible impact that our shorelines represent across King County. And so thankfully, you know, King County realizes that, and they continue to invest here. And, you know, we're just kind of the boots on the ground and help with some of the personal connections and things to make that happen. So, you know, if you believe in conservation, not only here, but in White Center, to have more urban space and for more space for the kids to play in our urban areas, that's what that conservation features levy means. And then, yeah, watch out for some announcements to come out and celebrate Misty Isle with us and see how that space might evolve. What else? We have our annual party out at Matsuda Farm this Saturday at 5 to 8 with Gravy and Saint Ophelia playing music. So please join us. It is such a fun time, and we can celebrate nature and regenerative agriculture at Matsuda. And yeah, as I mentioned, we're really thankful for our partnerships. I think, you know, it's always so interesting to see how new things work and how new counties work. And, you know, I came from a incorporated area where things were very, very different. And I think that the Land Trust really wants to step into being a leader and continuing to advocate for the support that we need, both on the conservation and the social side of things. And so, I know that's, you know, really where the community council is as well. So I just really appreciate your work, and we're here to support you. Any questions for me?
Melvin?
Yeah, you mentioned the Misty Isle acquisition. A couple of questions on that. Is that the property that where the sheepdog trials were?
It is.
And also, has that been reported in the Beachcomber?
It was, and I can find the article and maybe share it as well, but I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, if you want to search that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Nick?
Yeah, my question is much the same as Melvin's, but I know that property is part of the headwaters of Fisher Creek. Was that one of the concerns when sort of choosing what to pick? I noticed that a lot of land trust properties like have water features or are the headwaters for streams. Is that an important consideration for the land trust?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nick. And so with that parcel, we were more scared about development. So that was under risk of being parceled out and developed into homes. And so we wanted to preserve it as open space. But to Nick's point, you know, the other kind of leading edge that we're really trying to do better in is understanding climate science and being able to make parcel to parcel decisions and planning. And so we will be working with the Groundwater Committee more into the future, and other folks doing, you know, some great thinking around what our island looks like into our climate future. You know, I know many of us remember the landslides that faced us this year, and that will only continue. So we really want to have a science-based approach and use the best data that we have, and, you know, work with other scientists like Bianca over at the Nature Center to try and, you know, understand land versus how our ecosystems are recovering. So that's really exciting work that we hope to collaborate on together in the next few years.
Okay, Tanya?
No, unmute. So I'm on the Affordable Housing Committee, and for those pieces of property that are your acquisitions that you have that are near bus lines, are you open to thinking about affordable housing being along the edge of those roads? And leaving the rest of it, for trails, et cetera.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not sure if you've had Jason, the new director from Vashon Household, come yet to
We have.
visit. But yeah, we've talked a lot, and I think he is just a new energy to our island with a lot of political connections that are new to us. And so I think that in the past, it's kind of been an either or question, like, do we preserve for nature and conservation or for affordable housing? And we're saying now it's a win. We can do a win-win. We can find win-win scenarios. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. And I want to give a shout out to, is she? Yep, Yvonne Cooperberg, one of our founding members of the Vashon Land Trust. And just say that one of the things that makes me most proud of this community is the land trust and the vision that people like Yvonne Cooperberg and Joel, her husband, had in helping create this organization, because Joel had a very important position down in Florida where he came to know quite well that you can't just count on the government to preserve land. You have to do it yourself through private donations. And so we have so much land that has been preserved through the land trust on Vashon Island. It's just, it's quite a legacy that you guys are building. So thank you very much.
Well said.
Okay. Well, then the next, do you have anything? I don't think you left anything unsaid. I believe that, are you still open to having us do our meetings when we start in person?
Absolutely. We would
Excellent.
love that.
It's a great meeting place. So thank you. And now we have open discussion. Are there any people who have burning issues for the community that you'd like to discuss now or at a future time? Just kind of open the conversation to have further discussion. And feel free to raise your hand if you can think of an issue that you wanted to bring to the community council's attention. Okay, well, then we'll just save it for next meeting. And the next meeting will be Monday, August 15th at the same time, which is 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And at this point, I'm going to adjourn the meeting of the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council so that we can move on to the newly formed Vashon-Maury Community Council. So it's a 501c, it's going to be a 501c4 organization. And now that we see that we don't need to depend on contributions to run this organization, thank you, Mika, thank you, Diane, we can focus more on what this organization should really be doing, which is lobbying for, for island issues. And we don't have to worry about the constraints of being a 501c3. So I'll pass over the gavel to Diane Emerson.
Thank you very much, David. I have a virtual gavel in my hand. And I'm just going to give an update on where we're at with the new organization. We heard back from the Secretary of State. They approved our articles of incorporation. It took a while, but they did. And so they approved our name. They've improved our articles of incorporation. And so we are a bona fide organization in the eyes of the state. We have, with the IRS, we have our employer's identification number, referred to often as an EIN, which is, these are all things that one needs to do things like open bank accounts and so forth. The board has approved our initial bylaws and our initial standing rules, and we have an interim slate of officers. The officers, names are slightly different than the previous organization to more closely tie in with the new Washington state laws for nonprofit organizations that went into effect January 1st of this year. Our interim corresponding secretary, this is all alphabetical, corresponding secretary is Hunter Davis, and she's here this evening. The interim president is me. Interim secretary is Gavin Kovite, and the secretary is the key person who takes the minutes. I made sure about that. We have interim treasurer is John Affolter. Our interim vice president is David Vogel. And we will have elections for new board members will take place this fall. And we would like people to consider running for the board in thinking through how to do elections this coming time. We need to keep it very simple. And so just kicking around some ideas of possibly doing the elections during a meeting. And so I'll be thinking about that, and the board will be discussing that, how we want to do elections for the new board this fall. We also have approval from the state of Washington to accept donations. And a brochure has been printed for the new organization, and there's an initial website being created as well. And I'll just put the new website address. Okay. Right, so things are happening, and we have a bank account. We're very fortunate that the PSCCU has agreed to allow us to have an account there, even though we are a business. So that's fabulous, because both the treasurer and I bank there, and it's such a wonderful organization. We're very grateful to be able to have our account there. And the membership in the organization, we've talked about membership, and you've got the list. So please be sure that you are a voting member of the organization. People who are full or part-time residents of the island can be members, ages 18 and older, and they need to have a mailing address on the island. And that's about it. And then you can be a member, no cost. We're keeping it absolutely free. We're not going to use membership to raise any funds, and it's going to be an all volunteer run organization. And the application for the 501c4 status with the IRS has been submitted. The way this is working is that we just need to notify the IRS that we intend to operate as a 501c4 organization. Within 27 months of forming as an organization, we can file the formal application. It's not clear whether we absolutely need to do that. So I'm going to contact the IRS and find out more about that. There we go. So one of the things that we have been discussing in the new organization will probably ask your advice on pretty soon is, what day of the week should we meet? It's with more and more holidays coming on Mondays, it's becoming problematic to meet on Mondays. It's impossible for the beachcomber to attend our meetings because of their timeline. And I talked to the folks at the Beachcomber, and they would prefer a meeting on a Wednesday or Thursday night of the month, of the week. And that would be fine with me. I know that conflicts with other organizations, but it's really becoming problematic to meet on Monday nights. And I'd like to just open this up for some discussion right now about the meeting night and see what people have to say about that. You can raise your hand virtually, or you can unmute yourself and raise your hand physically. Nick, what would you like to have to say about that?
Oh, I just agree that Mondays are hugely problematic. I mean, both from, it's the first day of the week and everybody's kind of getting their stuff going again. And also the sheer number of federal holidays that fall on Mondays now, where people go out of town for a long weekend. Outside of not Mondays, I don't really have a preference for what day of the week it is.
Okay, thank you. Mika, unmute yourself and share what you have to say. Yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
I'm a Thursday person. Wednesdays are my only day off. If we can make it a Thursday, that would be so amazing. If not, I can do Wednesdays as well.
Okay, David?
My thought was that we could, if we kept it on Mondays, except on holidays, we could then put it to a Thursday, something like that. It's just a thought.
I've thought about that. You mean, so on those months where Mondays are a problem because of a holiday, we meet on a Thursday?
Correct.
That would also mean that the general meeting also needs to get moved out to a Thursday, because we have to meet as a board
Right.
before then, and we have to provide 10 days notice for our meeting. So it really becomes problematic to move them around on a case-by-case basis, and people, well, in my opinion, I think people will get kind of confused as to when we're meeting, because we'll have to move both the board meeting and the general meeting for holidays if we want to avoid the Monday.
Not necessarily true. We could have the board meeting on a Monday, have the general meeting on a Thursday, and then you've got more than 10 days notice.
Yes, and then okay, that's true. We could do it that way. And or move if we have to move the general meeting to a Thursday, then instead of a Monday, that I suppose would give us more time on the front end to prepare for it. So that's one way to do that, is to shift things around on an as needed basis.
And I see Deborah Gusson looks at the idea of just looking at the other island organizations to see when they may meet in order to make this decision. And the other thing is that we don't have to wait till the last minute to reroute or reschedule these meetings, because the calendar, should be out in advance,
Yes. So we could take a look at what problematic days are coming up for Mondays and work out the schedule based on those Mondays. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
Okay. Some people are saying a consistent meeting day is better. So and that's why we'll want to have more discussion about this, and we'll want to have people weigh in, and we'll want to get this decided before new board members come on board or nominate themselves for board membership, because if it could be really problematic depending on what we do for certain board members. Mika?
I just changed my mind from Thursday to Wednesday because I have a really important meeting that I attend on first Thursdays. I don't want to conflict with that.
Okay.
So I'll give up my day off on those days.
Hunter, what did you want to say about it? And you'll need to unmute yourself.
So I just wanted to say that our next board meeting is on Labor Day. And I feel uncomfortable having meetings when we have days that have been set aside by our government to celebrate workers. And I'd like to, I don't want to come to a meeting then. We had a meeting on Martin Luther King's birthday, and I felt that was kind of awkward. And then we had a meeting on 4th of July. It just seems, this just doesn't seem right to me.
Okay. Yep.
So it's our next board meeting that's on Labor Day, right, Hunter? Okay.
Mhm.
We need to move it sooner, before Labor Day then.
Yeah.
To
I
make
think so.
unless and I don't want to change the general meeting. It's easier to move the board meetings around
Yeah.
than it is. So okay, so we'll take a look at that and see what we can do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that's the calendar issue. I know it's a kind of a thorny thing, and we will need to be sure that we have the timing set up so that we can make sure to get notice out to people in time for general meetings and board meetings, and also make sure that if we are going to move them just individually, depending on holidays, that we have that schedule set up well in advance so that we can publish it and everybody knows that. Okay, so now I would like to see if there are any questions that people have about the new organization and what's going to happen next with all of this. Nope. Oh my gosh, it's only 8 o'clock. That's quite remarkable. So I would like to adjourn this meeting. Our next meeting again is Monday, August 15th. And we'll keep you posted if there's any changes in future dates, and determine if we need to have member approvals for changing any of these things. Okay, well, I guess that's it. Thank you all very, very much. I'm just going to double check on the chat and see if there's anything here. Okay. Yes, there is no question that there will be conflicts with many other organizations, and how we prioritize which organizations in the island have priority over others. I don't even want to go down that path. Okay, everyone. Well, you have a wonderful, wonderful summer, and we'll see you next month, and all take care. Thanks.
Thank you.